Hey. Okay. We are on to elimination. So there's three main ways to solve a system of equations. You can solve by graphing, you can solve by substitution, or you can solve by elimination. So these are three things that I do want you to write down. So please pause the video, write it down so that you're able to talk about it with me. Okay? Really follow me talking about it. Okay. So here we go. Graphing is okay. We're strong at graphing. Most of you are pretty strong at graphing, but it's not very helpful when you have an intersection point that's not nice. So if you have decimals or fractions in your solution, then graphing is not helpful to us. Okay. If you were solving a problem that deals with money, you would not want to use graphing because most likely you have decimal answers and you're not going to see it exactly on a graph. So substitution is good because you get the exact answer. So that's the positive side. The positive side is you get the exact answer. And oh my gosh, we have to have the exact answer. But what kind of sucks about it is it takes a while. It takes a while. You plug in this and then you get that, and then you plug in that and then you get that, right? It takes a while. I know that, which is why elimination is my favorite, okay? Elimination will give you the exact answer, which is a requirement, but it also is pretty quick. And what I mean by that is it's quicker than substitution, okay? It still takes a little bit, but it's quicker than substitution. But why I taught you substitution first is we still are going to use the idea of substituting while we do elimination, okay? But it starts off quicker, okay? So you'll see that. So we are going to write some steps down, and these steps that we write are going to carry us from part 1 to part 2 of the video. Part 1 of the video, I'm going to give you easier systems to eliminate. And then part 2, we'll get into more difficult, complex ones. Okay, so here are your elimination steps. So this works for any system if you're trying to use elimination. Step 1, line up the equations. Line up the equations. This might not make much sense right now, but it will. What it means, if you just watch me up here, what it means is you want your x in the same location as your x. So in the two equations, you want your x's in the same spot, you want your y's in the same spot, you want your equal sign in the same spot, and you want your constant in the same spot. Basically, I would suggest that you set them up as standard form. ax plus by equals c. ax plus by equals c. That's what I would suggest, okay? So line up your equations. Step 2, add the two equations to eliminate the variables with opposite coefficients. That's a lot of words, a lot of vocab right there. Add the two equations. So literally you got your top equation and your bottom equation, and you're going to add them up. It seems like magic, but it's math. You're going to add them up in order to eliminate. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to do a squiggly under eliminate and tell yourself that really what eliminate means is cancel out. So you're going to cancel out the variables with opposite coefficients. Coefficients are those numbers in front of the variables. So if you had like a 3x, the opposite coefficient would be -3 with an x. These, if you were to add them up, they would cancel out to nothing. They would eliminate. That's where the word comes in, okay? So if you had a negative 5x that you wanted to eliminate, you would have to use a positive 5x in order for it to cancel out or eliminate. Okay, that's what I mean by eliminate variables with opposite coefficients. Now here's the thing. You're not always going to be given a system that has opposite coefficients. You're not always going to be given a 3x and a negative 3x that cancel out perfectly. So you might have some work to do. So we're going to tell ourselves, and this is something I would like highlight if you have a highlighter, might have to multiply one or both equations to make opposite coefficients. Okay, this isn't going to make sense right now. Promise it will. Maybe not after this video, but definitely in class. Okay, so might have to multiply one or both equations in order for us to actually cancel out opposite coefficients. Okay, step 3. So after we get some stuff eliminated, some stuff canceled out, we're going to solve for the remaining variable. So if it's your x's that canceled out, you would solve for y. If it's your y's that canceled out, you would solve for x. Solve for the remaining variable. And then step 4, this is where substitution comes in, okay? That's why I taught it to you first. You're going to substitute, gosh, spelling is hard, substitute your answer into one of the original equations substitute your answer into one of the original equations and solve for the other variable. Solve for the other variable. Substitute your answer into one of the original equations and solve for the unknown variable. Okay, those are your steps. Let me show you what the heck this means. So here's your first example problem. First system of the day, here you go. 4x plus 9y equals 5. So that's your top equation. Second equation, negative 4x plus 7y equals 11. Okay, so there's our system. Now, let's read through step 1. Step 1 said line up the equations. Guess what? I lined it up for you. You're welcome. Okay, we got our x's all stacked up. We got our y's stacked up. We got our equal sign stacked up, and we have our regular numbers stacked up. That's what line up the equation means. So every once in a while, guys, you might have to subtract something to the other side or whatever to rearrange it. And that's fine. We know how to do that. Okay, so step 1's done. Check. Step 2, add the two equations. So literally, we're going to take these two equations and add them up. And we're going to do that to eliminate the variables with opposite coefficients. Look at your y's. You got a 9 and a 7. A positive 9 with a positive 7 does not cancel out to 0. But if you look at your x's, the coefficient of this x is positive 4. The coefficient of this x is negative 4. Positive 4 and negative 4 are opposites, which means they cancel to 0. So when we add up a 4 with a negative 4, they cancel. They eliminate. which is why this is called elimination. So your x's immediately eliminate, they disappear. And what that does is it lets us focus just on solving for y. So we're still going to add this up. Positive 9 plus positive 7 is positive 16y. Drop down my equal sign. I'm still adding. 5 plus 11, 16. I have 16y equals 16. So now we're going to solve for the remaining variable. Well, I'm going to just solve for y real quick. How do I get y by itself? Divide by 16. Y equals 1. Boom. Okay. So you already know part of the solution, right? You already know it's going to be something, comma, 1. Okay. Last thing we do, substitute your answer. So we're going to take this answer that we got for y, and we're going to plug it into one of the original equations. So I'm going to plug it into either this guy or this guy. It does not matter. Okay. And I'm going to solve for x. So I'm going to take this top equation. So we have 4x plus 9 times. Now that we know that y is 1, I can replace a 1 for y equals 5. Okay, so now we just simply solve for x. 9 times 1 is 9. Get rid of the 9. 5 minus 9 is negative 4. To get x by itself, I divide by positive 4. Negative 4 divided by positive 4. Negative 1. Final answer. Negative 1, comma, positive 1. Replay that if you need to. Okay, I'm going to give you more examples. Don't you worry. But we look for the terms that cancel out. Sometimes we have to force them to cancel out. You'll see that in a later problem. And then we just add up the rest, solve for the missing variable, plug it in, solve for other variable. It is quicker than substitution, but you still have to know the concept of substitution because we did it right here. Okay. Okay, now let's do some examples together. Here is example number 1. First equation, 10x minus 3y equals 18. Second equation, negative 2x plus 3y equals 6. So that's our system. Okay, so step 1, I'm going to peek at step 1, line up the equations, x's, y's, equal sign, other stuff. We're good to go. Step 2, add the two equations up and eliminate variables with opposite coefficients. Not all the time are you going to see variables with opposite coefficients, but double check. Was I nice to you? 10 and negative 2, that doesn't cancel out. 3 and negative 3. Yeah, it does. That eliminates for us. I was nice to you on this problem. You didn't have to force it to eliminate. So I see that my y's eliminate because they have opposite coefficients. A negative 3 with a positive 3 makes 0, right? So they cancel out. And I'm just going to add up the rest. 10x plus negative 2, it's the same thing as 10 minus 2. So that's 8x. Drop down my equal sign. 18 plus 6, 24. How to think about that one. To get x by itself, divide by 8 on both sides. And we have just found that x equals 3. So you know part of it. Now you need to solve for y. So we take this, we plug it in somewhere. Guess what? Doesn't matter which one you plug it into. It really doesn't. Okay, I'm just going to take the top one. Okay, so I take the top one, 10, but instead of x right there, what do I plug in for x? I plug in 3 for x. 10 times 3 minus 3y equals 18. Okay. 10 times 3 is 30. Drop down my things. To get y by itself, I got to first move this 30 over. Subtract 30 on both sides. We're left with negative 3y equals something. 18 minus 30. I know it's negative. 30 minus 18 is 12. So negative 12 would be the answer. Use a calculator to check my math. We want to get y by itself, so we divide by 3 on both sides. Negative 12 divided by negative 3, positive 4. Last thing we need to do, y'all, is write our solution. Our x is 3, our y is 4. Final answer, 3, 4. Okay? Hope this makes sense. I love elimination. I love just being able to cancel and focus on one variable at a time. It is my favorite way to solve systems. Okay? Number 2. Let's go to this one. X plus 4y equals 13. X minus y equals 3. So this is our system. Step 1, we make sure everything's lined up. X's, Y's, equal sign, other stuff. Good to go. Now we look to see if there's things that immediately cancel out, immediately eliminate. You have a positive X and a positive X. Does that eliminate to 0x? No. When you add those up, you would get 2x. 4 and a negative 1, does that eliminate? No. So this is where we made this little note. I hope you highlighted it. It said might have to multiply one or both equations to make opposite coefficients. Because remember, the cool things about equations is you can rearrange them. You can do whatever you want as long as you do it to both sides, right? So I can take this, either one, I can take either equation and I can multiply the left and right side, which is basically, you just multiply everything by something in order to make it cancel out. So think about what you wish would have happened here. Like for me, I see X and I go, oh, wouldn't it be cool if it was X and negative X? Wouldn't an X and a negative X eliminate? So let's force it to become a negative X. Think about what you would have to multiply that by to make it become negative. Well, you just multiply it by a negative 1. So I'm going to take everything. So I'm just going to group up everything. You can group up the left and right, but really you're grouping up everything in that equation and you're going to multiply it by a negative 1. Okay. So just so everybody's aware, I didn't touch the first equation at all. So I'm going to simply just copy it over here. X plus 4y equals 13. I'm just going to copy that over here. The second one is the one that we are manipulating or changing. We are timesing everything by negative 1. Negative 1 times x results in negative 1x, or just negative x. Okay. Negative 1 times negative y, negative times negative, positive y. Negative 1 times negative 3, or excuse me, negative 1 times 3 is negative 3. So basically it just switches every single sign of each term, okay? So you're allowed to do that because we multiplied things on the left by negative 1 and things on the right. So it's legal. But now what we see here is that when we add these up, you do have something that eliminates. Yay, okay? X's eliminate, so now I'm just focused on the y's. 4y plus y is 5y. 13 plus negative 3, that's the same as 13 minus 3, which is 10. Got to get y by itself. So I think we can all see that y is equal to 2. Okay, now we take this answer, y equals 2, and I'm going to go over here. I'm going to plug that 2 in somewhere. Well, if you notice on your steps, it says substitute your answer into one of the original equations. You always want to plug it back into the original just in case you screwed up on this step. Okay, So plug it back into the original. It doesn't matter which one. I'm just going to use the top. So I have x plus 4 times my y value, y is 2, equals 13. Now I'm going to solve for x. 4 times 2 is 8. Get rid of the 8. X equals 5. Last thing we do is we show the solution. Solution is your x comma y, so 5 comma 2. Final answer, 5, 2. Okay, I'm going to do one more with you, and then you're going to have to do one on your own. So here's number 3. Number 3 is going to be a little bit more difficult, but not much. We got 3x minus y equals 14. And then we got 5x plus 4y equals 12. We'll check that you wrote that down properly. Okay, so we check to see that things are lined up. X, y, equal sign, other stuff. Cool. Next, we see if anything cancels out immediately. Do your x's cancel out right now? A 3 and a 5? No, doesn't make 0. -1 and a 4? No, doesn't make 0. We're going to have to multiply one of the equations or possibly both in order to force something to cancel out. If you wanted your x's to cancel, you would actually have to multiply both of them. So you would have to make like one be a 15x and the other be a -15x. I don't really want to multiply both equations if I don't have to. So if I look at these y terms, I see a +4. Don't we just wish? Wouldn't it be cool if that was a -4y? A -4y would cancel with a 4y. So I would suggest let's cancel out our y's, but in order to do that, I'm going to have to multiply this entire first equation times what? What would I have to times it by? To make this a -4y, what would I have to times it by? I have to times everything by 4. So let's go ahead and do that. Both sides of the equations have to times by 4. So 3x times 4, 12x. -y times 4, -4y. 14 times 4, 28 plus 28, 56. Okay. The second equation, I didn't touch it. We're just going to transfer it over, copy it over. Okay. So it was only that first equation that we had to manipulate or change. Okay, now I see that my y's are going to eliminate when I add them up. Cool, cool, cool. That's what we wanted. Okay, y's eliminate. So then I'm just dealing with x's. 12x plus 5x is 17x. Drop down my equal sign. 56 plus 12 is 68. I hope that equals a nice number. Let's see. Divide by 17, divide by 17. I think it's 4, but let me check. 68 divided by 17 is 4. X equals 4. Okay, so we got part of it. Let's go ahead, plug that in. We get to plug in this 4 for x in either one of the originals, okay? So we could use this top one, that's fine. So instead of 3x, we have 3 times 4 minus y equals 14. Okay, original equation. Now I'm just solving this down. 3 times 4 is 12. I want to get rid of the 12. So I subtract 12 on both sides. Oops, I'm left with -y equals 2. I don't want a negative variable. So you have to remember there's a secret -1 in front. So I divide both sides by -1 and I get y equals -2. So my final solution is 4, -2. Okay, so I'm going to have you try out this last one on your own. Okay. I made it be a decent one. Okay. It almost eliminates immediately. So here's your system. 3x minus 10y equals 14. Second equation, 3x minus 9y equals 15. Okay. So nothing eliminates immediately. It's all lined up and stuff, but 3 and 3 doesn't cancel to 0. Negative 10 with a negative 9 doesn't cancel to 0. But 3 with a negative 3 would. So I'm going to go ahead and suggest that you times, and honestly, you could times either equation by -1 and you would result in the same answer. But to get you started, let's go ahead and everybody, let's just times this bottom equation by -1. Okay. First equation we didn't touch, so let's transfer it over. 3x minus 10y equals 14. Second equation is what you're going to times every single term by a -1 by. So that would result in a negative 3x, a positive 9y, and a negative 15. Okay. Now your x's cancel and you can go from there. The rest is on your own. Your final answer should look like an ordered pair. Parentheses, x, comma, y, parentheses. Good luck. See ya.